is your name?
I will strike.
Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse, the podcast all about animated features not made by Disney. I'm your host, Octaviano, and today I'm joined by another guest host. If you've seen him before, please reintroduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Jonathan. I'm happy to be back, and I'm excited to do today's podcast.
So, first off, I'm grateful for that you're here again. But basically, last time you were here, you did the Digimon movie with me, and I figured, okay, so for a follow-up, it'd be nice to go over to the other Mon movie, which is Pokemon. Now, instead of doing the original movie, I'm kind of doing the original movie, but it's the anniversary edition because a few years ago, for the 20th anniversary of the first Pokemon movie, they decided, okay, let's remake it in CG, and that's basically what we're going to be talking about today. For those of you who are completely unaware of Pokemon the first movie, whether it's because you've never heard of Pokemon somehow, or it's honestly because it's that old that they've made so many different Pokemon movies. The first one deals with the character Mewtwo. It's kind of like a whole existential thing with Mewtwo trying to figure out, like, what is this place in the world? Is he a Pokemon? Is he a person? Is he something else entirely? Which this version tackles, and I don't know. Okay, so interestingly, I didn't hate watching this movie, but I will say it has the same problems that I have with a lot of remakes, especially most people would probably be familiar with like the Disney remakes, where they're pretty much telling the exact same story that we've already seen with little to no changes, to the point that the stuff that they do change sticks out because it just feels weird. And I don't know. How did you feel about any of that?
I mean, I think you're onto something there. It is almost word for word, scene by scene, the same exact movie, just with updated graphics. And there are some slight changes that I did notice. I'm okay with it. I like to see remakes. I like to see them go back and tackle older stuff. I've never really had a problem with that. So I enjoyed it.
I mean, I don't know. When it comes to remakes, it really depends on what they do with it. Like, thinking about the whole like Disney remakes, just to kind of get aside from that a little bit. Like, I don't like pretty much any of them. Like, there's a few that I'm okay with. Like, one of the few that I'm okay with is the Lady and the Tramp one, which is one of the ones that they do the least amount of changes to. So, in that regard, the reason why I'm more okay with that one than say something like Beauty and the Beast, which does make some minor changes, is just because with Lady and the Tramp, look, at the very least, it's just we're getting into that story, so we're not making any major changes that affects the story. Whereas with Beauty and the Beast, the changes they do make affect the stuff that they keep the same. And that's kind of where this one is at, where more so on the Lady in the Trap, where they do make little changes, but nothing that really affects the story as it is. So it's more of a compare and contrast. Like, okay, do you like the old drawings? Do you like the CG? There's nothing that really changes. Like, the most substantial change that I found in the whole thing was that instead of Team Rocket being Vikings at one point to trick the main characters, they're instead like these performers on like a mechanical Lapras. But otherwise, it's beat for beat the same story. The only thing that beyond that might be different, and I don't know if it is, this is something more for the Japanese crowd, is that, at least as far as I know, they did not recreate the original Japanese opening, because one thing that we in America did not get was like the first 10 minutes of the movie, where we see like an origin story for Mewtwo, like where they show like, oh, these are the early stages of how he was cloned, and this is why the doctor who was cloning him was doing it to begin with, because he was trying to also clone his daughter. So it's like the whole, like, oh, I'm doing this on the side, but that's really just funding it for the thing I want to do, which ends up failing. It was deemed too dark for American audiences, so they removed it out of the original American release. I don't know if they recreated it for this version or they just cut it just because they knew how it would work around the world, since, of course, you got to consider that the big difference with this one on this release to the original was that with the original, it was still on that stage where no one really expected Pokemon to be a big hit everywhere. Whereas this one, it's already a phenomenon, so people know where it's going to be heading and what countries it's going to be playing at.
I actually have never heard of that. The beginning that you're talking to me about. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. If you've ever had, because this was actually released eventually in America, if you ever had like the sort of sequel that they made out of this, the Mewtwo Returns or whatever, where it's like him on an island with like the clone Pokemon.
Oh yeah.
For the DVD, they actually did have that as a special feature, and it was like, oh, here's like the untold origin story of Mewtwo, but it was actually like the original opening of this movie in Japan, because it's literally like these 10 minutes where it's basically like, okay, you see like this almost baby form Mewtwo talking to a little girl. They're all doing it like in their minds. There's more backstory to like scientists. It's just this really tragic story, and it actually kind of gives some understanding to one of the scenes that people have kind of mocked for years, which is the whole like the Pokemon crying and then the Ash comes back to life. In that version, they actually kind of set it up because the little girl mentions that like, oh, tears for Pokemon are magical or something like that. So it kind of gives you an idea, like, okay, so they set it up.
Yeah, that's where you get the inspiration from, but you can't really tell when you first watch the movie because you don't get that. At least not over here.
Again, I don't know if that was ever animated for this version. I would assume not, because one of the things I did notice that was changed, at least from what the characters say, is that some of the dialogue was a bit more like the Japanese version, because at least as far as I remember with the original version of this that we got, Mewtwo never really questions if he's human or Pokemon. Whereas in this one, he, basically mentions like, oh, am I a human? Am I a Pokemon? And that's something that was actually from the Japanese release. Because, I mean, I know one of the ways that they butchered it when they brought it over here was, and I know this is also one of the more infamous stuff from it, is that when the Pokemon are fighting, everyone's all like, oh, violence is wrong and whatnot, which is weird because, Pokemon is built on fighting Pokemon. So it's like, why are they talking about violence being weird? And even though in the Japanese one, it still kind of leans on that way, the more general idea right there on it is, the reason why it's wrong is because Mewtwo wants to prove that clones are superior than regular Pokemon, and the people that are saying like, oh, violence is wrong, are actually saying like, oh, what does it matter if they're clones or not? They're all still living creatures, so they shouldn't be forced to hurt each other this way, which, I mean, it's still kind of weird because, again, they're not doing anything that out of character, but at least I can kind of get the idea more like, okay, this is supposed to be more brutal than just regular fighting, and it's all just because of a race thing.
Yeah. Speaking of the differences, I know that there's a line that they added into the new one that can better tell the story of Mewtwo's existential crisis that he's going through for both films. It's not I don't have the line like word for word, but it mentions Mew in it, so the viewer can understand a little bit better as to why Mewtwo thinks the way he does and what his hatred is towards Mew. They added that line into this new movie, which I think is great because it gives you a better understanding as to in the original movie, he's just kind of going on a rampage. Doesn't really, that one line made a difference.
Yeah, I mean, to me, just going by these two movies, I mean, they're both messy movies. I'll say that much. Like in comparison to Digimon, which I do think has its messy points, especially because with that one it was like, okay, we chopped up 3 shorts and put it into one movie. In this one, it's messier more because they have an idea of what they're doing. It's just that, like you said, like they added in a line in this version to kind of clear that up. But there's still other stuff that I just feel like never really gets talked about too much. There's a whole tears thing. Like, granted, they do set it up better in the original Japanese, but I don't know if that's in the remade version, since it's as far as I see it doesn't pop up in it. But going beyond that, it's just like, whether it's the whole clones versus Pokemon or violence is wrong as we had it, I still feel like they could have done more with explaining like, okay, what exactly makes this more violent. Like I don't know, like one of the weirdest things is that there's a whole thing about like, okay, so he makes Mewtwo makes the clone Pokemon, which are supposed to be stronger, but they never really specified like in what ways. Like I think what would have helped this movie, whether it was this one or the original, was if they mentioned like, oh yeah, like the clone versions maybe have some like extra psychic abilities, stuff that the normal versions don't have. Like maybe they weeded out like the weaknesses that they normally would have, and I think that would have made it more impactful. And it's just like, look, I'll say this much: I do have my fun with this movie, and I do have my fun with the original one. But it's one of those things where once I start thinking about it, it's like, no, these are kind of stupid movies, really. And I'm not the only one who's really come to that conclusion. Rock and Misty kind of didn't really need to be there when you think about it. They're just there just to have Ash talk to someone. And Mewtwo, even though I do like the idea of him having an existential crisis, I do think it's a little weird that he does this whole thing where he pretty much creates like this weather disaster to only get a few Pokemon trainers to his island. And I'm like, if you're trying to clone all these Pokemon, wouldn't it be better to get as many people as
Many,
possible?
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like they could have even fixed that up by saying like, oh, I was only looking for like the best of the best trainers by getting the ones who could survive. But I don't know. It's never really implied or said.
Don't they imply that in the original though? I feel like that. I feel like that's actually something that does come out of the original, where he says that he only wanted the like the ones that could survive, the ones that could break that storm to make it into the island.
Maybe in the original, but in this, like, look, I will be honest. Like with the original, I haven't rewatched it in a while, and I only rewatched certain clips just to see if some of the things was in my mind different, or if it was different from where it was there. So maybe they did mention it on that. And this one, I don't hear that actually come up. So it's kind of like I don't know what was even the point of that. I mean, I don't know. There's definitely stuff even beyond that I feel like is messy from this. Like it's still interesting enough just because I do like seeing essentially a kids movie doing this kind of existential stuff, and especially like the horror vibe that you get from some scenes.
Yeah,
But I still think it's one of the weirdest things is that he already has like the clones of like Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard ready to go, because it's kind of like, okay, so you have these ready to go, and then you still capture the three that were on there, which weird ass coincidence, as if you were gonna clone them, but of course there's no point in cloning them because he already has the clones right there.
yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know, I just don't understand, and what was the point of that? And granted, this is actually a problem more so in the Japanese version, from what I remember, than in the English version. But in the Japanese version, because in here it's like, okay, so he captures all the Pokemon and then clones them, and Ash is the one that breaks them out. So it's like, oh, okay, so it was not intended for like this big battle between the original and clones. In the Japanese one, he does kind of mention like, oh, I'm not gonna keep them forever. I'm just grabbing them right now to clone them, and then I'll let them free once I'm done. So it's kind of like, wait, what was the point in that? Then again, with
Yeah, what was the point of you even taking them to begin with?
I don't know, like it's just kind
That
of a big mess in a way.
that there's actually another difference that from the original to this one is that the original had that what is it, a 20-minute short, Pikachu's Vacation,
Yeah, yeah.
and it looks like they opted out to not make this one in the new one, which kind of sucks because I mean I haven't seen that short in a while, you know, but from what I remember, it was a pretty good short. You know,
Yeah,
it was a nice start to a good movie. It's just kind of like the shorts that you get like when you go watch like a Pixar movie. It's a nice treat. And for this one, it just kind of sucked that they didn't remake that too, because it would have
yeah.
been nice to see it, redone in the CG.
I mean, the only thing that I really remember that I didn't like about that one was I don't know if you remember this, but there was constantly scenes where like after a bit of the story would go on, it would cut to like, okay, here's like certain Pokemon doing some random shit, and it was kind of like the transition. Like you'd have like, oh,
Yeah,
here's Magnemite, and then it pops up, and it's like, wait, why are they doing this? I mean, I'm sure it was because of marketing purposes, because it's like, put in as many Pokemon as you can. That way, we can sell more of these toys.
yeah,
But
yeah. That makes
beyond
sense.
that, I mean, yeah, that was a huge short. I'm surprised that they didn't bother trying to recreate that, just because again, it was the whole anniversary thing, which as an anniversary special, I can't say I blame them too much for trying to recreate this. I do just kind of wish that they might have taken a few more steps to kind of make certain plot beats make more
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. When it comes to the actual story part of it, they pretty much just ran the waters the same way. They just copied and pasted and just kind of moved on with just small differences. Like if you notice in the original movie, that battle that Ash has with that pirate, the
Yeah,
pirate has a I believe a golem or a grappler,
yeah,
and it gets taken down by Pikachu's Thunderbolt. If you're somebody that watches Pokemon and knows like the type differences, you know that an electric type couldn't beat a ground type that easily. So in the new movie, they not only changed the design of the pirate, but they actually gave him a new Pokemon. Instead of having a rock type to go up against Pikachu, they gave him a psychic type. They gave him a Drowsy, which is a better
Boom.
combo. Like it's a better fight, I guess.
Yeah,
It's
I
more
mean,
realistic.
yeah, I mean, I know technically electric isn't like the strongest one to use against psychic, but then again, it just brings me back to back when I would play like the original red and blue. The common thing I would do whenever it came to like the psychic one, like Alakazam and whatnot, is use a thunder on it, and it would always be like the one hit KO. So
Yeah.
I don't know, just a random thing, but yeah, it's with the changes. Yeah, there's like minor things like that, and for the most part, I don't mind most of them. It's just that I do kind of wish that they would have done some with some of the story beats that didn't make as much sense. And some of the lines, because I noticed that with some of the lines, it kind of goes back to that clunky first movie where it's like you kind of notice that they're still in that era where they're selling this almost as if they don't know how to have them talk naturally, because they're still saying stuff like okay, let's try to cram in the word Pokemon as much as possible or whatever, because we got to remind the kids this is what they're buying, and it just feels weird. Like I don't know,
Yeah,
like
and all this remake is just another money grab. Honestly, it's another way for them to remind you. You know, us as adults, we grew up watching Pokemon, and it's obviously like to me, I still go out and buy Pokemon stuff. I still buy Pokemon cards.
yeah,
And to kids nowadays, like okay, we were introduced to the first movie when we were younger. Now they're introducing it into for newer kids to watch. And it's all just a money grab, which is why they didn't work on the story. They're not like, oh, we're gonna. It's not a remake. It's basically like a. Again,
like a
I don't
remaster or
say
something.
yeah, like a remaster, because it wouldn't even. I don't even think it'd be considered a reboot, because in a reboot you would change a lot. You would have the same story, but you would change different pieces of it to make it a better story. A remake is like you just copied and pasted, but they did just similarities that just slight differences. So I just want to. I think you're right. I think it's just a remaster, and they didn't work on it. They didn't make the story better. They're just like, okay, how can we make the most money with this, with something we already own, something we don't have to put work into aside from the animation, because they're not going to drop the same movie with the same style of animation and expect revenue. I mean, I'm sure they'll still make it, but they're not going to make it like you would in the new CG movie.
Like think about like with little stuff that's changed. Like one of the things that I actually think is a change for the worse. But it's such a quick thing that most people probably wouldn't care. But it's like when Mewtwo escapes from the island. Well, when he's first destroying the lab with the scientist in it, the scientist that delivers like the big line of like, "Oh, we were trying to create the strongest Pokemon and we succeeded." In the original one, it's done much better because it's given much more of a horror vibe where he's literally killing these people. In this one, it's brightened up a bit. Like it's still him killing these people, but you don't see the destruction like as dark as it was in that. But you see like the scientist kind of runs out of the lab a bit, and then he stops like at a hallway, and he says that, and then that's when the whole explosion goes on. Versus in this version, I mean, in the original version, where it's like it was all in a small room, and he's pretty much looking at Mewtwo as he's saying this, so it kind of gives him more weight.
Yeah, it gives it more of that horror tone, like dear God, what did we do? He's facing death, and then
Yeah,
that's implied in the original, and this one I think it's toned down.
yeah,
I think as all things nowadays are really watered down when it comes to the violence,
yeah,
and I think it's ridiculous because Pokemon is mild violence. You got these creatures that are fighting each other to the point of exhaustion. Um, it's still violent. So why water it down? You know?
yeah. I mean, and that's actually a thing that carries throughout most of this, where a lot of the stuff that was given horror vibes in the original You still kind of get it in this version, but it's either changed because of like the lighting, the way they set up stuff. Like one of the few scenes that I actually do think was done somewhat better in this version than in the original, um, is just when you see like all the Pokemon being captured by Mewtwo's I don't know what if he gives them a specific name, but it's like his own Pokeballs.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one of the few things that I actually do like in this version more, just because it's done more in the dark versus in the other one where it was still like in a little room, so it does help in giving it that horror vibe. But that's like one scene out of a lot of them where it's just like it's the stuff is brightened up or given more room so that it doesn't feel as close and I guess as menacing as an original cartoon. Like even the stuff with Giovanni, because you of course get again with the backstory him working with Giovanni for a bit. Even that doesn't seem as terrifying just because a lot of it is done in brighter locations than what you saw in the original movie. And granted, this is probably just my own thing, but it's also kind of ruined because the suit that they give Mewtwo in this version is overly designed to the point that it's kind of comical. Like
Yeah,
it
like
was,
yeah, the armor that they gave him is way more kind of like spider like. It's all like clunky and it's just over the top, as opposed to the original armor where he just had like kind of like the shoulder pads and like the just the helmet. It was simpler.
yeah, it was just a sleek thing, so you kind of still understood what you were looking at. With this one, it's kind of like I can't really focus on all the really bad things he's doing for Giovanni because
Mm.
I keep on looking at the design and trying to figure out like, okay, what exactly am I looking at? Because like the shoulder pads have like extra needles. I don't know. It's all over the place, but I don't know. It's just I don't know. It was just a weird choice, and I guess with that, I should really talk about the animation, which for the most part, if it's the Pokemon, they actually do look fine. If it's the humans, that's a lot of the problem. Like I feel like a lot of the humans, like they look exactly like the characters in the anime, but they look lifeless. Like a lot of the characters, since they give them like the really big eyes, and which is fine because that's one of the things that makes cartoons work is like the big eyes, so you can tell what they're feeling at that moment. But they never have them expressing way too much emotion, so it always feels more like you're looking at dolls than you're actually looking at characters.
Yeah, they look kind of like they look almost lifeless because like the even the color palette that they use is a lot lighter. So
Yeah.
the skin doesn't look as vibrant as like you would get with like 2D animation. Because 2D animation, the colors it like kind of pops more, and the 3D makes it look well, like you said, lifeless.
Yeah, kind of generic.
Yeah, and like you said, the Pokemon look fine. Honestly, the colors that they chose to use on them, and like the way that they just kind of bubble up, everything is fine with the Pokemon. It's the people where it's just like, damn, like you could have done this better. Honestly,
Yeah.
the animation, I mean, for a remaster, so I'm choosing to call it now. A remaster is not is great. I mean, it's updated. It's clean. It doesn't look that bad. And the only complaint I have is the people. You could have just done a lot better with that. Even the scenery and the movie and stuff like that. Everything else looks pretty clean.
Yeah.
Just the people.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. It's little stuff like that that makes me kind of go like with this one being the worst one. But even then, it's like it's kind of hard to say really because it's one of those things where it's like I mean, it really comes down to what you prefer animation wise. There are little details that I do prefer from the original, and little details I prefer in this one. Like I said, I do prefer the whole scene where all the Pokemon are being captured because I feel like it's lit better. Like if especially if they're going for a horror vibe, but then every other scene that is going for horror vibes, I think is done better in the original. The Pokemon battles I think are yeah they're actually pretty well animated. I'm trying to think of whether or not there's a big difference with a lot of these over the original. Not I think maybe the Charizard one is a little more over the top, at least from what I remember. But I don't know. It's all about the same. I mean, the only real thing that I would have preferred, and this was a problem even with the original version, is when it gets to the clone versus clone battle. They only did it right with the with the starter, the fully evolved starters and Pikachu,
Yeah.
where it actually gave them like little markings to kind of give you an idea, like, okay, this is the clone and this is the real one. Um, with the rest of them, they didn't bother giving those markings, so it doesn't really
You don't know which one's the clone and which one's the original.
yeah.
Yeah. Another piece of that too, the difference between the original and this one is that the song that they use in the original one isn't
Oh
kept
yeah,
in the CG, and that makes that scene.
kind
You
of
know,
yeah.
that's the scene that makes you cry. You know, I remember even as an adult, I've seen the movie and teared up a little because it's just a sad scene. But
Yeah.
then, but the music is what makes it too. You know, it's all one bundle. And then the first time I saw the new CG one, I was disappointed. I was just like, where's the song? Where's the sadness? You know, I came
I,
here to cry. I didn't come here to watch the movie. I came here to cry.
I mean, in terms of that, I kind of feel like they could have maybe worked it out because I'm sure that part of the reason why they didn't use the song is because of legal issues and
Probably,
whatnot. But I still feel like okay. I mean, granted, this just comes back to it being a Japan thing being translated to America. I feel like maybe they could have done a thing where it's like okay, we could have probably made it. If we were going to have the music, we could have probably made it a little more violent in a way, like not over the top, but to the point where it's like you kind of feel the blows a little more because without the music, it becomes more noticeable that most of the time these Pokemon are just kind of butting heads back and
yeah,
forth. Because in the original, it's like they're doing that too, but because of the music, it kind of works with it because it feels like okay, it's just going along with the beat rather than it just being a thing that they're doing, which again goes back to my whole thing where I just feel like okay, so what exactly was Mewtwo doing with the clones? Because he says that he made them better, but here we're seeing they're evenly matched. So I think they could have been like, okay, let's actually showcase that they got maybe certain moves that those Pokemon normally don't learn. So the regular Pokemon started putting up like even harsher versions of their own moves just to try to combat it. Like the whole what do they call it when you're about to die and you basically try fighting harder than usual. The fight or flight.
no fight or flight. Yeah,
They could have probably done it that way, and again, it probably would have helped and explain like, okay, why is this version of Pokemon fighting more different than what they were doing before? But I don't know. Yeah, the removing the song, as goofy as it is for some people, I think does hurt it because it does give a lot of emotion to the scene. It just makes the scene look like it's Pokemon butting their heads against each other.
man, who is watching that original scene and saying that it is silly? Nah, if you're a fan, you're not looking at that scene and you're like, this scene is silly. Okay, you look at that scene and you cry. Okay, your tears help bring Ash back. Okay, you're not. Okay, if you're telling me that the scene is silly, you're not a Pokemon fan. You need to leave the building, please.
I mean, I'm just
I
saying that's what a lot of people just have said
oh,
online. I've
find me these people. Find me these people. They're not real Pokemon fans. Get out.
but
Uh,
and even the crying, like I did think they could have kept that 10-minute opening from the Japanese version and to kind of better set it up, or at the very least, one of the things that I was kind of thinking was like, okay, what if again if Mewtwo had given these Pokemon different abilities just to make them superior, like if you had given them all like psychic abilities, and they would have used some of that, with the tears to kind of bring it back to life. But I don't know. It just feels like they could have done something better in that regard. But one thing that I did notice that was kind of weird in this watching this again, and I'm like, this was something that I completely forgot even from the original. Is like, okay, so during the whole scene with like the Pokemon trainers back with like when the storm starts, trying to get on like the boats or whatever, you get Officer Jenny telling them like, "Hey, look, you can't leave because of how dangerous it's out there." And they bring in another lady to kind of like give like a story or some shit. And I'm like, they give this woman a very specific design and a moment kind of focused on her that it feels weird that she isn't a bigger part of this story. Like I don't think she needed to be like exactly with them right there, but I feel like I don't know, like they probably could have had her basically connect more with the whole Mewtwo thing. I don't know.
No,
Like I don't know
no.
I don't know what you think about that, but I don't know. Isn't it a little weird that they give like a very specific design and voice to this lady that doesn't really have much to do with anything?
Yeah, I think it's their attempt to make slight changes. So like, oh, this is a new movie or a new movie. Here's something different, but it doesn't. I don't think it fits. And like you said, it's just it's all around just weird. They could have done without.
Without that character, which
Yeah, they could have done completely without that character, and it would have been just fine.
because like with that, I'm like I don't know. It kind of feels like it's almost setting up as if her and Officer Jenny are probably going to go after these characters, and they're going to be somewhat involved with the story.
Yeah, but even just like in the original, like when Officer Jen just can't stop them, they just go off on their own. It's the same thing. That added no benefit to us whatsoever. It wasn't
Yeah,
even like like okay, we're gonna add new characters, and now, like you said, now we're gonna go chase them down because now there's two characters. It's just pointless. I mean, that's what I think. I think it was just pointless. It just gave somebody another character to animate for no reason.
I don't know. Like if you're gonna do that, like I feel like maybe they should have given it, like especially those lines where she mentioned something about like the sea or whatever and Pokemon trainers.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they could have probably given it to the nurse Joy that gets kidnapped. Like maybe like when she's let loose, and maybe she could have said something like in regards to what was going on, and it could have probably connected better to the story that way. But I don't know. It's just a weird thing that they added in.
I don't know. This movie is just I don't know. It just feels like they just made it for the money grab. They didn't really take time to plan out like, oh, let's make this better.
Yeah,
They just kind of gave it to us. They're like, oh, like 20th anniversary. Here, have some nostalgia. Nostalgia served on a plate. And I mean,
that was it. I
most
mean,
of most of us hopped onto Netflix and we're like, oh, cool. It's Pokemon, the first movie, just remade, and then you get to it and you're just like, oh my god, what is this?
yeah. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's like, look, realistically, whether it's this version or the original, I don't think either version is particularly good. I think they're at least watchable and they have their interesting moments. Whether it's they actually do deliver really well. The scenes that are supposed to be sad, the scenes that are supposed to be like more horror based are pretty well done and cool. I do
Yeah,
like Mewtwo as a character as a whole because it's a really interesting way to go about that character. I just wish that there was more of that, but on the whole, it's like it's not like the Digimon movie where it's like okay, it's got its weirdness, but on the whole, I do think they made a good movie out of it. I think it's just more of a this is I guess it's one of the best ways to explain it. I don't know if you've ever seen like the original Transformers cartoon movie, but to me, it's kind of like that where it's like, is it a good movie? No. Is it worth watching and fun? Definitely. It's got its moments where it hooks me in. It's just not a very well told story. Like they definitely could have taken another pass or two at what they were doing.
yeah, no, I completely understand what you mean. Um, I mean, it's one of those movies that's just kind of there. Like, it's one of those movies where you don't got anything to watch and it's there, and then you'll watch it,
Yeah.
you know. But I don't
It's
think I'd
like
go out of my way to rewatch the movie again.
pretty much. I mean, it's like I've said multiple times already. It definitely got its moments where I'm like, yeah, this works, and this would be great in a better movie. But within this movie, it becomes the highlight.
And don't get me wrong, like I know it may sound that we're just kind of dumping crap on this movie, and I mean, at least on my side, I don't want to make it seem like that because I still love Pokemon. I still love the franchise. I still love everything about it. Um, just one of those things where like you pump out so many things successfully, you're bound to have one or two kind of like, eh, I can do without this. I'll still watch it. It was still a great watch the first time I saw it. Um, just nah.
Yeah, like for me, it's like if you
They gotta
watch it,
re they gotta remake this and then put Brother My Brother in it, and then I will approve. That's what they gotta do. In like 10 years when they hit the 30th anniversary or 35th or whatever it is now, they have to remake this and put the scene in, and I'll be just fine.
it might work better. I mean, to me, it's just I don't know. I've kind of liked what they've been doing as of late. At least I don't know if you've watched any of the more recent Pokemon movies. I haven't really watched them, but I've at least seen clips of them. What I've noticed is that for the more recent ones, outside of this one, they're not really focused on trying to connect it to the anime. It's just like, okay, here's um just a new adventure with Ash and Pikachu. Sometimes they don't even have any of the characters that he normally pals around with. And it's just like, okay, we're going to build a story. Like, I remember there's one where it's like, oh, it's a small town, and we're telling basically a story with like 4 different Pokemon trainers, and Ash is kind of like the key connection to that whole thing. And I was like, okay, that's kind of neat. I know there was another one where they had a monkey legendary Pokemon, and it's like this whole Tarzan jungle kid kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't know if it's any good, but I kind of would, especially with how long this thing's been running, I kind of would like to see them do more of that, where it's just like, we're just doing a movie, whether it connects to the show or not, doesn't really matter. We're just having Ash around us to kind of ground it for the fans a bit. My thing with the Pokemon movies, like, because I've only seen this one and the first 5 they did. Everything else I've actually seen a couple of other ones, but for the most part, like, I know for sure, like, I did watch the first 5. I saw the one with the Lucario, and I did see the one where it's like Arceus or whatever. A lot of them are kind of messy in the same way, but I do like, certain aspects of this. I do think this one at least has some of the more interesting moments, even if it's a mess. I don't know. I kind of wish that they would do.
I have my issues with the movies. I have never liked the fact that they haven't been canon. You're gonna sit there and tell me that this child has come across the most legendary of Pokemon, and then you get to the anime, and it's like the experience he gained from those movies, the character development he had, it just doesn't revolve. I have never liked that. I've always hated it, and I've seen, just like you, I've seen, like, Pokemon, the first movie, 2000, the third movie. What else? I've seen the Jirachi one, the Celebi one, the Arceus one. I think the most recent one I've seen. I don't even remember the title of it. It's on Netflix too, but I forgot I forgot which one it is. It has to do with like this city that's powered by wind, and it's got yes, this is gonna bother me. I'll have to look it up. Anyways, my point is, all the movies that they make, they're not canon to the story. When you get back into the anime, you're just like, well, why can you sit there and tell me that Ash has ridden on Entei and Lugia, and he's done all these amazing things in the movies, and then you get to the anime, and it's like it never happened. You're treating me like I'm a fool. Not that I'm getting mad. I'm an adult, and I shouldn't be getting mad. But God damn it, I do not like being lied to.
I mean, that to me goes back to like what I'm saying. Like, at least for me, that's why I prefer some of the newer stuff that they're doing, just because at the very least it kind of makes it clear that it's not very connected to it, because it's only Ash around. Like, it's not the other character, so I could kind of be like, okay, so it's just another universe with that character, just because we got to remind people of what this is. Because like a lot of those earlier ones, like with the Entei one or the Lugia one, you still have like Misty, Brock, or whoever his companions are at that moment in time.
Yeah.
So it kind of becomes like, well, if you're gonna be having it that connected, it might as well be connected to the show. But I don't know. I'll be honest with you, that's not even just a Pokemon problem. I've noticed that with a lot of anime, where there's a lot of like anime movies like Inuyasha, Naruto, One Piece, or whatever, where they have these movies, and it has little to no connection to the actual show. Like Dragon Ball Z, for example, has like at least a dozen or so movies
that are not canon.
And pretty much the only one that they ever tried making canon, at least from what I remember, was the one with Garlic Jr., because there was that whole story arc where he came back. Everything else is just like, it happened at some point.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what anime's problem with this is, but they got to stop that shit. The movie that I'm referring to, and now that I looked it up, is Pokemon, the movie The Power of Us, which is also on Netflix.
Okay.
Okay, that again, it brings me back to my point. You're gonna sit there and tell me this kid has run with the most legendary of Pokemon, and he gets to the anime, and it's just like, oh, ain't shit happened. He's just Oh my God, look, a Lugia. Like, God, that bothers me so much.
I mean,
I
even the
shouldn't. I
anime.
shouldn't be getting mad. I'm 27. I shouldn't be getting mad. But damn, stop lying to me, Pokemon. Stop lying to me.
I mean, even the anime kind of has this problem though when you think about it, because you have his Pikachu, who at this point should be at level 100,
That Pikachu is beefed up. Okay,
and
that
yet how
Pikachu
many
could probably take down Arceus. Okay,
and yet how many times has he lost the damn league? Like he barely finally won it in Alola. Um,
I think they were just doing that just to laugh at us.
and
They're
then
just like, oh, let's make him as powerful as we possibly can, and then just make him choke at the end of the day. You're just like, damn, why you got to do Ash dirty like that?
like granted, I haven't really watched much of the anime over the years, but I remember hearing from someone like, oh yeah, like even in black and white, like when they did that anime, they kind of rebooted it in a way by having like a early on Pikachu getting its ass whooped so hard that they mentioned like, oh yeah, it's almost as if it went back to level 5 or some shit. Which I'm like,
Yeah,
how exactly does that happen?
I don't even know. Um, I don't know. It's one of those things that just bothers me. Like, where is the amount of work that you've put into to make this character development, and you know damn well, like like the Charmander that Ash has fully evolved into a Charizard. You're gonna sit there and tell me that his Squirtle and his Bulbasaur aren't a Blastoise and a Venusaur yet? At least you can get the excuse that Pikachu isn't a Raichu yet because
Oh, the
you need
stone.
the Thunderstone. Okay, you want to keep that Pikachu as a Pikachu at a level 1000, that's fine. But you're going to sit there and tell me that the rest of his Pokemon over the, what is it, like 2000 episodes now? That, God, I hate this. Don't even get me started. I'm going to just flip the table over.
I don't know. I feel like Ash kind of feeds a lot of his Pokemon like Everstones or some shit like that
How you just force feeds them
because
like, none of you were evolving.
I'm like, yeah, like you do get like every generation. There's always like that one Pokemon that he evolves, but then he has a bunch of other ones that don't evolve. Like it was kind of
Yeah,
cute
like,
with Rowlet because during those final battles, I remember seeing clips where it's like, oh yeah, it even dresses up as if it's trying to be like a freaking like its final form. I'm forgetting its name right now, but point is like,
the Rowlet?
yeah,
Damn, I don't remember its name.
but yeah, like it's dressed up like that, so it's kind of like a joke. And I'm just looking at like no, he has this problem all across. Like you know what, Ash would probably win more of these things if he actually bothered to evolve half the Pokemon that he sets out with. Because it's like, as far as I remember, none of the Pokemon from his Johto team ever got evolved. Maybe like one or two, maybe like the because I don't know if he started off with the Hoodoo or he already had the Noctowl.
No, he caught the Knocktail.
Yeah, so
Let
he didn't even evolve it. So it's like, okay, so it was already evolved. I know, like when it
me
came
see
came
his.
to like
Look,
fourth gen.
the list of his Pokemon that are fully evolved is Butterfree, which he caught as a Caterpie, Pidgeot, let me see, Charizard, obviously, Kingler.
I know for the fourth gen he had the Chimchar that actually became an Infernape.
I think doesn't he have a Croconaw? Oh no, he has Bayleaf, which okay, I guess evolved once from Chikorita.
Okay, I mean,
Uh,
because I
oh,
know even
he has a Quilava too, so it did evolve from the Cyndaquil. Totodile was the one he didn't evolve. Um,
okay,
Noctowl, he caught shiny, which was another added thing that I actually did enjoy was that when he caught the Noctowl, obviously as children you don't really, I mean, at least for me, I didn't really pay attention to that. It wasn't until I got older that I realized that his Noctowl is a shiny Noctowl.
yeah, and then I mean I know that he has the Greninja, so it came from the Froakie.
Yeah, he's got a Donphan, he's got a Swellow, Sceptile.
Okay, so he has evolved more than I thought, but I don't know. It just feels like every time I see it, it's like always like the pre-evolved forms. I know that for sure in the most recent show he does have like a pretty much a fully evolved too because he has like a Surfetch which he did evolve from like the Farfetch. He does have the Gengar and Dragonite even though he caught him I think I already like that. Uh,
I mean,
Ki-
I'll give it to them. They're fully involved, I guess. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know. I don't know if it counts because they already he already caught them like that. He has a Lucario, so he's got the Dragonite, the Gengar, Lucario, the Surfetch'd. The hell is this? Dracovish,
Oh yeah, and one of the
um,
yeah,
Mr. Mime, which I guess is fully evolved from Mime Junior.
which when I don't know if it's already finished. I don't think so, but when I was looking at like, oh yeah, this is his team and he's gonna take them into like the tournament or whatever. It's like, okay, so he's bringing back his own Greninja. He might bring back his Charizard for the fight, and I'm like, so he's gonna bring in all these fully evolved Pokemon. So for once, it seems like he's finally learned something.
Yeah,
He
so
better fucking win again. It better not be.
I'm looking at this right now, and he's got a Melmetal. He has a mythic Pokemon. Now you can sit here and tell me that this man loses. You got a mythic Pokemon. Now I don't know how rare, like if having a mythic Pokemon in the anime means you have the one and only Pokemon. That's kind of how it seems when it comes to the legendary Pokemon.
I don't think
Um,
so, just because with Melmetal specifically, since how that works out is that it needs a bunch of metal, so it's usually a bunch of Meltan coming together. I would imagine that Meltan is at least fairly common.
he's got an Incineroar.
Because I know one character in the show actually had their own shaman.
Oh, his Rowlet never evolved.
Yeah,
See, that just I don't know. He would be so much better if they just let him. You know what? Here, your starter Pokemon, raise them all the way you can. You know, be the league champion in every season you go through. I don't know.
anyways, we're,
He's
we're
not.
probably way off topic at
I
this
know
point.
we've gone off into a whole ass tangent of Ash. I don't even talk about Ash anymore. He's useless. Bring me a new
Well,
character.
I mean, again, with generally speaking, Pokemon movies, I think most of them are usually kind of messy, anyways. But there are some that have their moments. I do think that the original Pokemon movie is fun for what it is. Maybe one day I'll talk about that one specifically instead of just going off the remake and talking about back and forth. But the remake, much like with the original, has the same thing. So some things are done worse, some things are done better. I do think a lot of it is ruined a bit by the animation going for a lighter color palette and just having more lifeless characters. But on the whole, nothing that really ruins it in any special way. Like I was still, while watching it, I was still kind of hooked into it. So at least that's got to be worth something. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it. Just
No,
sum it
I mean
up.
I pretty much feel the same way. I mean it's just another Pokemon movie that you can watch later on if you really want to. I'll still enjoy it. I'll still watch it. It's still for what it is and for what they tried to do. It's still a good movie. So again, I didn't want to make it seem like we were bashing on the movie because that's again I still love Pokemon and everything. It just could have been done a little bit better. But I
Yeah,
mean, aside from that, I don't really think there's anything much else to say about this movie that we haven't already ran circles around.
especially considering we started talking about Ash.
I know. Like we need to make one of your episodes like a side piece where we just talk about these characters that need to get their shit together. There's a lot
Pro-
of them,
Probably. I mean, I've thought about doing a few of those. I'm actually
and
I'm waiting on someone else because I've been trying to do a video where it's just talking about the company Illumination, the guys who make like the Minion movies and whatnot.
yeah,
But that hasn't really happened. And then I know this was way back where it was me and two other co-hosts, Arnella and Joseph. We were talking about movies that didn't get made. Though
hmm.
that ran into so many tangents that it was
Oh, I
almost
know.
like
I listened to that episode. I was laughing the entire time, and I was just thinking to myself like, "Damn, this could have been fun to be a part of." But that episode would have ran like at least another hour with having me on there.
yeah, I don't know. I gotta do something like that someday. I don't know. One of these days, when the show gets big, I really want to like try to invest like in an actual studio just to try to get as many people as possible like it right there together. But
Just have yourself like a Joe Rogan studio, and then you could just give each of us your preferred bottle of alcohol. And
I mean, I
we'll just
wouldn't.
talk all day.
As long as it's not like Joe Rogan, I'm not a fan of his.
Well, I'm not telling you to be like Joe Rogan, but I'm just telling you like his studio-esque part of it. Walk in there and give me some whiskey, and we can just talk about how much of a shitty trainer Ash is.
Yeah, I mean that, or honestly, one of these days, I am determined to get as many people as possible to watch the Cats movie and get everyone's reaction to it because I'm like, that shit'll be fun.
That's a one, my good sir, that you can count me out of.
Oh no, I'm gonna bring you in. I'm gonna make sure.
Please don't. Oh, please
I'm gonna make
don't.
sure
I am
to get as many people as possible.
I am definitely not gonna answer the phone call.
You won't even see it coming. I'll probably get a bunch of people, promise them that we're gonna be watching some Academy Award-winning masterpiece.
You are an ass.
And then out of nowhere, fucking Cat starts.
Yeah, you're just gonna get a bunch of disconnects on your server.
Oh no, this is gonna be when I have a set. I'm gonna have them like.
Oh, you gotta trap us.
Exactly.
Oh, you gotta trap us. Oh, okay, that's not fun. Remind me not to trust you anymore. I'm good. Like, for the people listening to this, if I go missing, just know that he has me somewhere locked up in a basement watching Cats on repeat. Please send help.
All right, well, you know what? I think that's as good a place as any to close it. So,
leave it at Cats. Cool, leave it at Cats.
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
So thank all of you for watching this and listening. We're gonna be talking about Cats someday in the future.
No, we're not. We're lying to you.
Okay, so yeah, this has been Octaviano Macias, and that was John. We're gonna watch Cats someday.
No, we're not. We're not watching Cats. You go watch Cats on your own. Nobody's trying to watch Cats.
Thank you for coming on and listening to me today. If you enjoyed it, you can always subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow my podcast. It's on Podbean, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And if you want to support me even more, there's always the option of Patreon. Patreon is a great way to support artists. And with that, you can always put in $1 or even more. It's all up to you, all just to help produce the show and other things I may do. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in the coming future.